get a machine with more capacity than you think you need, because especially with these food grade grains, harvest timing has a lot to do with the quality of what you get in. Overcapacity is never a bad thing. Would you concur with that?
I agree with that 100%.
All right, so I got, anybody else concur with me on that? What's that?
Yeah.
Especially on the
You're
side
right.
hills.
Yep. So, I mean, I would say I started out with a Alice Chalmers 72. This is what, a 60, 66?
This is 60.
A 60. So the number refers to the length of the cutter bar, I think, if you can correct
5
me.
foot, that's right.
Anybody correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe I'm going to tell you a bunch of stuff that isn't right. So the 72 was the most modern of these all-crop machines, which were, I think, from what I've read, produced in larger numbers than any combine in the history of combine manufacture. I mean, this combine came in just when there was a lot of small farms that had 15, 20, 30 acres of grain to do, and this was a cheap, mass-produced combine that worked really, really well and allowed people to get off of waiting for a crew to come in and harvest it and the expense of that. So they sold in droves back when farms were that size. The great thing, my first combine was a 72, which is a 72-inch cut. It's got a couple of more modern features on it. This has this canvas. This, I would call this the feeder house on a larger combine, which basically the crop is cut here by a sickle bar mower. It's got a reel here to push the crop over the sickle bar mower. This is called a bat style reel. Most modern combines have what they call a Hume style reel, which has a set of fingers that come over on the bar like this. So it can actually pick up a downed crop, and you can adjust the tilt to those fingers. A Hume style reel is a really great thing to have. These bat reels are fine as long as your crop is standing. If the crop's on the ground, basically you're screwed. I don't know, how does this go up and down? And mine had a hydraulic cylinder on it to lift the head up and down.
This has a handle.
Okay, this has got a handle. So this is a real early. There you go. This is back when men were men and you had big muscles before hydraulics turned us into a bunch of sissies and wimps. So the 72 has a couple of modern features like that, like hydraulic lift on the head, which is really nice. And it's got a chain style feeder house, which is a lot better in terms of feeding more evenly into the cylinder, which so the crop is cut. Anybody who knows how a combine works, excuse me, I'm going to explain this in the simplest terms possible. The crop is coming in cut here, the whole crop, head, leaves, stem, the whole deal flops onto this belt or feeder house, we would call this, on a self-propelled machine, and then this carries it up and into the threshing cylinder, which is right behind it. And you can, if you come over here, oh, we can see it. This is awesome. Even got a latch. Okay, so here's the threshing cylinder right here. If you come over here and look, it's a series of bars. Oh, we can lift that up too. Beauty. We can get a good look. Yeah, look in there and you'll see the flow of it. It's coming up the feeder house and then hitting this. Now this doesn't have this doesn't have the rubber coated cylinder bars. Was that a later?
No,
they're gone. Okay. All right. So this thing's seen a little action. So the cylinder is a revolving drum, which as the crop is coming through, basically beats the grain out of the heads. You can adjust the speed of the shaft here. On a more modern combine, there'll be a sensor on there to tell you in the cab how fast it's going. On this, you actually need a tool. Do you have one of these? I have one of these, a shaft speed indicator.
Yeah.
It's a little dial head with a rubber tip on it, and you can put that on the center of a shaft, and it will tell you how many RPMs the thing is going. And for one of these style combines that you have no idea how fast it's going, when you look in the book and it says run it at 500 RPMs, you can't look at that thing and tell. So one of these shaft speed indicators is great. The other thing they have is one with a little radar gun, and you put a little piece of tape on there, and you shoot it at it, and it reads how fast that tape is going by if you want to be more progressive and modern. But I think for this machine, the old style shaft speed indicator is probably a better pick. So the cylinder can be adjusted two ways. One is the amount of speed that you give it, and the other is by adjusting it up and down between the cylinder and a set of concave bars, which are basically just bars underneath it that it rubs the grain against. What is this?
That adjusts. There's a variable speed shift on the other side that you can.
So that's how you crank it faster or slower. Okay, that's what my 72 had a similar thing in a different spot. So there's your adjustment, and then your up-down adjustment in terms of cylinder to concave clearance would be set with this threaded rod here. In terms of the great thing about these Alice-Chalmers 7260s is when they haven't had the rubber worn off of the bars here, they actually do a really, really good, gentle job of taking the grain out of the head. I mean, really, really, really nice. Very little breakage. A classic, more modern combine, it's all metal on metal. And in terms of grain quality, when you're adjusting cylinder speed and cylinder to concave clearances, more speed tends to break the grain, less speed tends to keep it a little bit whole. So when I'm doing it, I'm looking for the lowest speed I can run this thing at and still do a 100% job of threshing it. Cylinder to concave clearance tends to not break it as much as speed does. Speed kills, as they say. So just something to think about as you're adjusting it. So after it goes through the cylinder and concave, on a normal, this is a sideways unit, which is rather unique. Most combines, obviously, this whole piece here, which is the separating unit, would be tilted this way and it would go out the back. On this, it takes a 90-degree turn. So all the material, threshed grain, and all the material is falling off onto this part here, and then onto the part back there, which is the straw walker. And the straw walker is moving like this and basically fluffing the straw up in the air and slowly moving it along and bouncing it. And what is that going to do for us? Makes the grain fall off through, right? And that's going to fall down, and you'll see, this does it. If you look down here, there's a part called a rattle chain, which is basically a really simple chain. John Deere combines use a set of augers. And the Alice-Chalmers Gleaner combines use a rattle chain, and the rattle chain is going to take the grain that has been separated, and it's going to have heads in it and some other things that fall through, is going to take that back to what they call the cleaning shoe. And we'll keep going this way, and we'll look at the cleaning shoe and what that does. So if you look here, this is what they call a cleaning shoe. The top screen here is called a chaffer. The bottom screen is called the sieve. All right, and these are adjustable. I guess you got to unscrew this. I don't know if I can't get it. But anyway, you can adjust the tilt on these. And you can adjust the tilt on the bottom one, and it basically works on the same principle as an air screen cleaner. Did you talk about air screen cleaners?
We did.
Okay, so this thing is shaking back and forth, and you've also, on the bottom, you've got a fan, so you can adjust how much air you're putting up through this thing. and try to get the cleanest sample you can get. Anything that falls through the bottom screen is going to go down into what's called the clean grain elevator, which is, if you see this auger right under here, and that's going to go up into your tank, and that's what you're going to get. Anything that comes over, either on the chaffer, it'll tend to fall out, but anything that comes over the bottom sieve is going to go into this auger, and that's called a tailings return auger. And the tailings, if you hear the word tailings on a combine, it means everything that didn't get threshed or was a little bit too big in particle size to fall in the sieve, which is the bottom part, which is like the bottom screen on your air screen cleaner, or the middle screen on your air screen cleaner. And anything too large, like a corn cob or bigger heads that have been threshed, will come out the end of the cleaning shoe. So you can see the tailings elevator here goes back and falls on the front of the cylinder again and gets re-threshed. All right, and so what you want to do when you're adjusting this machine is, you know, you can set this bottom sieve way down and you'll get tons and tons and tons of tailings returns, but each time you thresh the grain again, you've got more of an opportunity, A, to lose it out the back, B, to break it or damage it, and C, you decrease the capacity of the combine because you're threshing everything twice. So the trick with a combine is to get this all adjusted so that you've got a little, you're always going to get a little bit of tailings return, but not so much that you're decreasing the grain quality or the capacity of the combine, and also that you're not losing too much out the cleaning shoe and or the straw walker.
Can we, those of you that heard the thing from Ron Springer has a 72, Alice Chomper 72,
Okay.
and he got about 2/3 of his spelt dehulled by doing something with his combine setting. Joel, do you remember what I said? Is this what he would have done?
He would have probably put the bottom sieve really, really tight, so that only whole berries would come through, and then anything that was still in a hull was probably coming through and going back into the tailings return up this elevator, and then he was threshing it twice.
Right.
And you could do that, but you got to slow down, or you're gonna plug something up. Believe me.
Now, what do you think about, like, for wheat and oats and stuff like that? You run it slow, but like we tell our guys when we're doing spelt, run around 1,000 RPMs to run it tight, and it'll dehull.
Yeah. Yeah, and it depends what you're trying to do and how hard the crop is to thresh.
Right.
The adjustments on this are going to change. They change from early afternoon to late afternoon as the crop dries. You got to constantly be checking what you're doing. A guy that just goes out in a combine and starts driving around is going to do a really, really bad job. You've got to be checking what's coming out of the tank. You've got to be checking what's coming out onto the ground. What I do when I'm first setting the thing up is I have these 1x1 foot pans that I use, and as my hired man is coming by with the combine, I'll throw that underneath the combine and get a sample of what's coming out on the cleaning shoe. And they have calculations in books determining head width and how much grains per square foot equals how many bushels lost per acre. And from that, you can decide, okay, here's my tank sample, looks like this. Do I want to lose a little bit extra and get a better tank sample? Or do I want to get everything and I'm going to clean it out and I don't care what the sample looks like? It's a balancing act.
But it's phenomenal that when you look at that chart, what he's saying, it could only be 2-3 grains per square foot is bushels.
It depends on the size of the cut. I mean, for a 15-foot head, I know on our John Deere combine as a 15-foot head, I think it's about 46 kernels per square foot equals 1 bushel. So what they say in the book is a few kernels on the ground, don't go bananas trying to adjust everything, because it's actually from what they say in our operator's manual, it actually is more than you would think.
So per square foot, you're talking about what's coming out.
Per square foot of this.
Right.
Right.
Of this, not per square foot of the whole thing, and it's calculated on the head size.
Coming directly out of the combine.
So, for example, can you explain if you have a year where you think you're really heavy on fusarium, and you think you're going to have some trouble with the vomitoxin report, what might you do here to minimize that, or am I wrong about?
No, you're not. This year, so we did have a pretty sketchy year for vomitoxin, and of course that's a big concern of mine. So what we tend to do is the vomitoxin tends to cause the kernels to be lighter in weight than a normal wheat kernel. If you look at what that fusarium does to the head, and maybe you all know this already, but it causes it to kind of die early, and it produces what's called a tombstone kernel, which is a kind of shrunken looking gray kernel. And what you can do is, and Joel probably does the same thing, is turn the air up quite a lot. And you can blow a lot of those fusarium infected kernels out with the combine. So we ended up taking a little bit more of a field loss because we knew, because of the climate conditions and because we go out and we scout our fields pre-harvest to see even which fields have more problems, how we're going to adjust the combine and on years like this year. And we actually were able to get all our grain under 1 part per million. Maybe Joel do you have some other tricks for that? Do you do this similar? Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is if you're a farmer, you try to get everything you can in the bin.
Right.
But the next guy down the road, if you get, like you're saying, those bad kernels or real little kernels that would go out, the next guy's going to dock you for that. You ship that in there, you might have weight, but they're going to dock you because he can't use them.
Right. Yeah, this is particularly true. We grow a lot of buckwheat, and we grow it on a seed contract. And they don't like to see a lot of shrunken kernels in there. They want to have buckwheat test weight is 48 pounds, and when we bring it to the place, they check the test weight on it, and I have a test weight meter, and we try to bring it there around 44 pounds. And so there's, if you've ever grown buckwheat, it always has a lot of kernels in it that look like they're good kernels, but when you grab them, there's really nothing there. So we ended up putting our air up quite a lot more than, if you looked in the tank, you'd think, oh, this looks pretty nice, but they'll just dock you for that stuff. So you might as well blow it out. It takes up truck space, it takes up bin space, you got to move it. So the combine can, I buy in a lot of grain, as probably Joel does too, and you buy in a lot of grain where you just go, this guy did not have a clue of how to adjust this machine, because it'll have all sorts of crap in it that can really be left in the field. The other thing I would say in terms of adjusting a combine, only change one thing at once. Yeah. So if you're looking in the grain tank and you're going, all right, well, there's this problem or that problem. Don't go and I'm going to open up this and then I'm going to shut this and turn the air off all at once. Just do one thing and then see how it looks in the tank, and then do it a little more. And I have little cut off pieces of tape measure from a tape measure that took a giant crap. You cut those off and make little things. And these are a little bit, some of them are broken and stuff, but get an idea. Okay, just put it down there and that's 3/8 of an inch. Well, then just bring it up a 1/16, but do it accurately. And even write it down in a book. And the other thing I do is each year when we've got the thing set and it's in a sweet spot and it's doing good, I write that in my combine manual. We got it set this. And then we look at those over the years. I have sets of these things year after year after year of combine settings. And I'll also write what the crop was like. Like last year we had corn with really small kernels on it, and it was, we had a drought, and this year we had to blow out a lot of fusarium. Well, what were the conditions and how did I set the combine? Because I don't remember anything anymore. So if I don't write it down, it's kind of gone. So I would say make notes about how you adjusted the combine each year and what worked good, if you're getting a lot of extra tailings, say, what did you do? Like, where did you set your bottom sieve, or if you were getting too much in the tank? So, and just play with it. You know, when I first started messing around with these things, I didn't have anybody to show me how to do it. You know, my dad was a 6th grade social studies teacher. So I went out there and I used to spend hours, I mean hours, messing with the combine, like just figuring it out, and just keep messing with it and experimenting. It's fun. When you finally get it right, it feels really good. And then each year you're going to get a little bit better at it. And now I can go out there, look at it, and get this thing adjusted like this. And that's all just through messing around with it. I mean, nothing here is concepts that aren't too big for anybody with intelligence to understand. And I would say just play around with it, you know. And if you know the basics of how each component operates and how each component affects the other component, anybody can adjust and use a combine. But it takes time. Be patient, you know, because usually when you go out there and it's time to harvest, you're like, man, I want to get stuff in, and you don't want to spend that time. But if you don't do it, it costs you. I mean, what would you add to the blather I just laid down? Would you agree?
That's good.
Yeah.
I think, where's Kit at? Oh, here. I think it would save you, or be to your advantage, to fix this up. Like he's saying, the rubbers are missing, this is missing. It's going to make your cleaning project so much easier, because they say these old machines that really do a good job. It'd save you.
They do a great job. And I mean, if you look at just this, I don't want to trash talk Kit's machine, because I love Kit. I love Kit. Yeah, like this, you know, I mean, you got a hole here. It's like, you can't, this thing is non-adjustable. It's like, how are you going to make an accurate adjustment? Or where these things are broken, you have a big gap here. You're going to be getting heads that are going to be going down and maybe clogging your sieve. When I got my first conventional combine, it was a Gleaner F2, and I was always getting unthrashed heads that were coming through there, and I got my thing adjusted and I couldn't figure it out. Well, the door that the cylinder bar sat on someone ran a rock through there, and it had just a tiny dip in it, and so those heads would sneak through there unthrashed. And I got a new door and new bars, and then I could adjust it, and it worked like magic. So some of these little, you know, repairs that Kit could do here are going to make a big difference in terms of how much he's got to do later.
Right.
You know, because it all starts in the field with good combining and having a well-maintained piece of equipment. Because all these, the combine, I mean, you get a fancy-ass, you know, $250,000 John Deere with all this great electronics. It works on the same principle. This hasn't changed much.
Kit, I wanted to have Kit talk a little bit about what the problems you've had with this machine and what you've repaired, what you'd like to repair, but what the costs are. But before we do this, could somebody answer a stupid question on my part? Why is this called an all crop? Will it really combine any crop?
If you look in the manual, they have
settings for everything.
Settings for everything, screens for everything, and yeah, you can just about harvest anything with it.
Well, not corn.
Yes, it had a corn head it came with it.
Oh, it did have a corn head
for it.
You can harvest sunflowers with it, harvest rapeseed with it.
I mean, they have like
Any
the
stuff
number
you
of
probably
things they
don't
have
even
in there
know
is
about.
mind-boggling.
It is. It's just
It's mind-boggling.
Is it one of those things though, like one size fits all? Yeah, it may fit you, but not very well. Would it really harvest
Well, I think
those
they
crops?
probably had different sieves, and like even my Gleaner has different chaffers for different crops, just like you would put different screens in. Yeah, that's like a clover screen.
That's a clover. That's for Timothy.
Yep.
This is from a different combine, but that's what the wheat screens.
I mean, and these are just like the screens you would use in an air screen cleaner. We combine clover seed with our Gleaner. I mean, clover seed is this big.
Yeah.
The other, like, if you ever can get one of these, and you can get one with what's called a scour clean on the top of it, that thing is genius. I mean, it does an incredible job. So what happens with a scour clean is the clean grain elevator goes up, and before it goes into the tank, there's it goes through a cylinder that's got screens inside of it, and that takes out either all the weed seed, or I've even bagged Timothy off of that thing. It'll take Timothy seed, any small seed goes through that scour cleaner, and then there's usually a bagging platform here that comes off of it, so you can bag off the scour cleaner either weed seeds so they don't go back in your field and increase your weed seed bank, or we used to combine Timothy with this thing and have it all go up into the scour cleaner and use the scour cleaner to take the Timothy seed out. They're pretty cool.
Well, how available are parts for something like this?
I don't.
There's a guy called Yaz.com. Check it. He's out of Ohio or out in the western part of Pennsylvania, maybe.
I got that on the used equipment list in
Okay.
his website.
He has all kinds of parts. Not everything. I mean, I had to get some bearing. I had a bearing go bad. I had to go up to Fry's, salvage yard. He has all this old kind. It's basically a junkyard for tractors and old equipment, and he had some up there. So I got pieces off of that. It'd be nice. It'd be nice to have one of these sitting around it. I could take parts off of, But.
So what have you had to? What have you been your major problems with this?
A major problem? What?
Canvas.
The canvas was the major problem. The original canvas was really rotten, and if you look at the canvas now, it's rubber, and
The original canvas was canvas.
the original canvas was canvas. What I don't care about the rubber is when you start up a hill, what happens is it starts to load up and it'll slide. It keeps sliding and sliding. So I'll have to stop and I'll have to get off and lay my hand on it, and it'll walk up to then it'll go into the cylinder. That's one of the problems. The other, the big problem I had was the belt on the back. This one right here, I have a belt like this handy. This thing, when we're cutting our spring weed, I was saying about the weed load, we'd end up with a lot of ragweed and foxtail. And when I'm going on a side hill, I have to almost go out to the end. If you're trying to cut uphill, this raker won't take everything out, and it jams. And then once it jams here, it jams at the cylinder, and then you're inside there pulling things out. That's the major problem. I haven't had too much problems with the belt. My sickle bar is really dull, and that's something that needs to be really sharp, like Joel had said, because what you end up doing is partially cutting it off, pushing it down, you lose your yield that way.
Right.
Elizabeth and I did a trial with flaxseed this year, and I could not. It was like, it's basically nylon, and this bar would not cut it. I had to take a little walk behind sickle bar, rake it all up, and then throw it on and thrash it out.
He didn't speak to me for weeks.
It took so much
I'm glad you
time.
guys patched it up.
The other problem that I had was, of course, I didn't have a building to keep it in. And when it sets out, I sit there watching it rust year after year after year. Finally, we got a pole shed. What would happen sometimes is if you didn't clean this out down here, the water would go down. Anything that laid in here would start to rot. And when you would open that up, initially it would be real stinky, and it would start to rust.
Yeah, I would say a combine is the one machine you don't leave outside.
Indeed.
Yeah, it really
Or lend to
needs
somebody else.
Yeah.
Put a hay baler up there too.
Yeah, that's right. And this, you can see that this is, it needs some patchwork. I kind of did jewelry rigging with sheet metal and then taped it. And the other problem I had was my door wore out at the bottom of this elevator, so I permanently. It needs a door fabricated for it. But like you said, I was in a hurry. So what I did was I just took a coffee can, bent it all around, riveted it fast, and used duct tape.
Farmer fix, gotta love them, yeah.
And this broke this year when we were working with it, so that needs to be repaired. Other than that, I haven't had too much. I had to replace a bearing in the back here. There's a clutch, the drive where it comes through, and that went bad. I went up to Fry's and got the piece up there. They happened to have what I needed, so I was very lucky.
The great thing about used combines is you can work on them every day of the year.
You could almost, yeah, certainly. Paint job the last thing.
Did you talk about like how much material you're taking in based on how it threshes? Because I know regular combines, sometimes you hit a sweet spot. You got to have just the right amount of trash coming through for the threshing to work well. Too little, too much, just doesn't work
That's
right.
a really good point, actually.
Sometimes
a combine works best at maximum capacity.
Yeah.
So, and part of that is having enough, because a lot of the threshing that happens in a combine is actually material on material threshing itself. And the more material you've got in there, if you think about it, the more cushion you've got to prevent that grain from breaking. So if you're just running a little bit of material in there, the combine tends not to thresh as well, and it tends to do more grain damage if we're talking about quality, and it tends not to separate quite as well. I mean, all those, how much material's on the cleaning shoe affects how much air you need. You know, all these things, forward speed, you know, we usually set our forward speed. You know, I'll be on the cell phone with my hired man, and he'll be going at figuring out what the maximum forward speed is, maximum combine capacity, before we start losing a lot over the cleaning shoe. And then if you're going up a hill, you know, how much you have to slow down. Our combine tells us the speed that we're going. So the newer combines will have piezoelectric sensors at the end of the cleaning shoe that will actually be able to hear grains hitting them and equate that into a field loss, which you can watch in the cab, which really helps you to determine when the combine is at full capacity and what your forward speed can be. But that's a good point, you know.
And sometimes just changing your header height, cutting the small grain makes a whole difference, you know. You don't think you need to take all the straw in and cut it all. Sometimes it's better to leave it behind, because you start, at least you're organic, you're bringing in other trash beside the grain, and
Right.
sometimes that just makes the threshing almost impossible. And just bringing up that grain, that head, so you're not cutting all that trash.
Yeah,
makes
crop
a difference.
condition depends a
Yeah.
lot. Are you selling the straw? Are you
Yeah.
going to chop the straw?
Yeah.
Is it clean? You know, I would say in terms of header height, we usually just try to cut right above the green material, because you will have heads that are falling over. So
Yeah.
you want to try to harvest as much as you can. If you're growing clover in there as a companion crop, you know, that'll increase the amount of head height you need to have. So as you take in less straw, you can increase your forward speed a little bit too. But I think a certain amount of straw in there is good as a cushion in terms of grain quality as well. So there's all these, you know, trade-offs up and down in combining. I think it's a pretty.
That's where all your book values are good for this year, but next year it may be totally
Yeah,
different.
no, and they do. They change incredibly from
Yeah.
year to year. That's the cool part about it, you know. That's why I try to write down what the conditions were like, because then you can at least, if you have that, at least you start there, you know. Like this year when we took our combine out to do corn, we started where we had it last year, and then, you know, you tweak it from there. But that can decrease the amount of time you spend setting the machine, you know. And even hybrid to hybrid will change the cylinder to concave clearance, or some hybrids will thresh harder than others. So you're always looking at that. And I mean, in terms of corn, what you're looking for is whole ears that have all the kernels taken. You don't want to chop the ears off or chop them up into little pieces and break them. So that's what you're shooting for, and then you adjust from there. So.
Did yours have a pickup head on it?
Of the 72?
Yeah.
No, just the
templates for them.
yeah, just the cutter bar. But it did a fantastic job. I was bummed to sell it, but I wasn't really. And the one I got, it was such a great thing because I got it from this little dairy farm that was going out of business in the hills near where I live, and this guy had bought it brand new, and he'd grown like 7 acres of oats every year that he combined with it. And it could have gone into an Alice Chalmers museum. I mean, it was like factory fresh, you know, it was so beautiful. But there it is.
We want to talk about how.
Oh, let's see, Joel, do you have anything to add to any tricks or?
I thought we could
pluses?
have a discussion of how to buy a used combine, but maybe we can go back inside and.
I think Joel had a
I'm
point.
interested in
Yeah,
this comment.
yeah, go ahead.
No, not about that, but I'm about the guy that's operating the combine. If you're selling for food grade, I don't care if the stuff's down in the ground. Don't go down in the ground and get rocks and stuff like that, because you kill the value of your crop.
That's a good point.
Also, an old combine like this, you got to be careful when you almost ought to have a magnet set up somewhere on your cleaner because some of this stuff will flake off. I mean, when it's this old, and if that goes into food grade and someone was to eat that, that would could be a lawsuit.
That's a great point. We have put magnets in on our cleaning system, and you would be amazed what you grab. Bolts and all sorts of things coming off of the machine. You know, all this machinery is shedding, you know, material. So, yeah, that's a great point.
Another thing you might want to touch base on, since we're talking about heritage and value-added grains, is cleaning out the combine between crops.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a big challenge, and that's one of the beauties of these older machines, is that they're a lot easier to clean than Thor's John Deere.
Right. Yep, that's true. Yeah, well, when you want to, we basically purge the machine. That's how we tend to clean it, just because we'll go in and clean the tank out, open up all the doors on the elevators, run the thing for 10 minutes, open all these things up, turn the fan all the way up, and just get as much out as you can. And then when we go into the next crop, run a half an acre through the machine, you know, get 30, 40, 50 bushels in the tank and purge it, and then we'll just do something else. I mean, I've got guys that want feed for their pigs or whatever. I mean, you're gonna lose this, you know, when you get into growing all these weird varieties and different things, you're always purging. I have a life. If I ever wrote a book about my life, I would say the life of purges, because I'm just like purging augers and purging cleaning equipment and purging. I mean, we're just constantly running grain through to clean other grain out, and I could use like 50 of those 5-gallon pails, because I get so many 5-gallon pails.
Get 50 combines and have one for each crop.
You know, carrying around, you know. But even when you just want to move grain from A to B, you know, it's like, oh, that had augered. What did we just put in that auger? Oh, buckwheat. Well, we don't want to get any buckwheat in our rye, and you got to purge it out with, you know, a couple, 3, 4 bushels. So
You know,
that's a good point to
So when you
always
get down
purge.
to those small varieties of grain, say you're growing a half an acre or an acre,
Spend more time cleaning.
It's going to do you a favor and come and do that acre for you, and he's just been doing his Roundup Ready soybeans or corn. You could purge your whole acre, and you're still going to have contaminated grain. So, you know, that clean out process, and I work as an inspector for certified organic crops, and that's one of the things that you want to make sure people do due diligence on, is keeping those clean out logs.
So
Yeah.
one common problem that I see in grain coming into me, I often test grain for the project for farmers, and I see, is this primarily where it's happening? I see rye getting mixed in with wheat, a wheat crop, and there's a substantial amount of rye in it. Would this be one of the problems, just not getting a good clean out, or?
Yeah, well, good clean out, or you could get, you know, I mean, if you're saving your own seed, a real danger is when you're cleaning seed, if you had any rye or something a little bit in an auger that was in the cleaner. I mean, Joel's got quite an operation there. How do you do all your purging and
that's
stuff?
like you vacuum and
Yep.
But it's like Elizabeth's saying, I think guys that you don't want to use certified seed, they have more of a problem with dragging, like you're saying, rye. It only takes you don't know if that rye came from a dirty combine or was it already it was rye mixed in the
With
field
your
here
grain.
and there. And then,
Yeah, or you even look at, you know, when I get
Last year's
seed,
crop.
even seed from, you know, place like I get seed from Seedway. Well, you look in there and you'll find, you know, you'll find other grains in there, and those can be as bad as weeds, you know, in the wrong crop, really. So yeah, always look at the seed. You know, I found last year I got rye seed from Seedway. We needed a little extra. I found corn cockle in it. I found hairy vetch in it, and I found a couple of seeds of wild radish in it. And I called them up, and I had the head of the company come down there and look at it. I said, you know, you can get sued for this, and they can.
Yeah, that was probably not meeting the state
usually
seed
say
laws.
99% weed free. It's that 1%.
No, but noxious weeds like that is a 0%
Oh,
tolerance.
0 is it?
Yeah, there's certain weeds that you cannot have in there.
Yeah.
you cannot have, and it wasn't just one.
Okay.
So seriously, look at when you
Yeah.
open the bag, look at the seed, because you will find seed even from seed companies that can have really bad. And once you get those weeds on your farm, you know,
They're there.
they're there. I mean, we hand weed all our wheat. Hand weed it. We go out with feed bags and we walk
For vetch.
for vetch, for corn cockle, and for wild radish. Those are the three that are really a problem. And if I have fields where I know that's an issue, I don't plant food grade wheat there.
Yeah.
You plant corn and oats and things that are going to go for livestock feed, and then if you've got a little bit in there, who cares? But you know, be careful where you plant and be able to identify those weeds. And there's certain points when they're flowering and the weed is just senescing where they're really easy to find. Like you go out there, the weed is starting to brown off, and the vetch is just flowering purple flowers, and the corn cockle is putting its little signature head up, and the radish is got its little head, and you can see that all. And that's when we just stop what we're doing, go out in the evening when it's cool, get yourself a martini at the end of the field, so you want to keep walking, and do it. You know, you just do it. So, and that also prevents them from going to seed. So,
Yeah, that's really critical.
yeah. I mean, if you want to be in this market, you got to do the extra work. That's why it's value added, because you're adding value by putting extra work into making sure it's a high quality crop.